Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 266 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to work on breeding Factorio fish for the purposes of making oil by pressing them. Enjoy. There's also a couple other efficiency things we can do. And that's the oil pressing of plants using ceramic filters. Because right now, you have the choice of nuts, pips, or beans to make vegetable oil. Nuts being the best, and then it goes through a coal filter to get vegetable oil and nutrient pulp, and then that vegetable oil can be split between fuel oil and mineral oil. As a result of 100 going in, we get 160 vegetable oil and 40 nutrient pulp with a coal filter, but if we use a ceramic filter instead, we will get 180 vegetable oil and 20 nutrient pulp. So in other words, we cut the amount of extra pulp we get by half. And yeah, it's possible we might need that pulp for other things, and we do. But generally, it's something we have too much of, that it's being pumped away to other places. And if it can't be pumped away, it's being processed into the glycerol liquid, which itself is being dumped, and fuel oil, which isn't being dumped. Because producing this as a byproduct is a result of making the fuel oil to begin with. The ceramic filters are made with alumina, and to clean them you just add purified water and that's it. No coal. So not only does it save you on coal, but it cuts down the waste pulp by half. So that seems pretty good. I'm not sure if it's any different in speed. Let's see, 4 seconds. And that one is also 4 seconds. So no difference there. But in doing that, it also unlocks the ceramic filtration for fish too. We have our choice of the various fish types, or just fish meat. If we press a fish, we get fish pulp and raw oil, and the different fish produce different amounts, where previously the Santa rays were best for making polluted water. Well, in this case, they're the worst for making oil, because you only get 1 pulp and 50 oil, where the very best one is Factorian fish, where you get 5 pulp and 200 oil. And of course, if you don't need the pulp, turn it into nutrient pulp and throw it in the system. But the first tier requires the fish oil and some thermal water, which is luckily nearby, to get the fish oil and base mineral oil when the mineral oil is what we're there for. And then the fish oil can be turned into lubricant, so it doesn't get turned into mineral oil, but kind of what you need is lubricant anyway. And some fermentation base, which can go into something else. So what happens when we have the ceramic filters? Well, instead of getting 100 and 100 of each output, you get 125 of the fish oil and 75 of the mineral oil. So more fish oil, less mineral oil. And it also unlocks a way of processing the fish oil, where the first tier gets you 60 lubricant and 40 fermentation. This one gets you the 75% of fermentation and 25% of the mineral oil. So if you wanted less mineral oil, you could do that. So sure, we'll grab all that. We'll have to check to see how good each one is. And there's some research just kind of hanging around here. We can unlock the ability to process thermal water into mineral sludge. It's a good way of getting free mineral sludge if you really need it. But I think we're fine, but we'll still research it. And this gives us access to the ceramic filter for crystals. It looks like it's a 1-to-1 ratio with the first tier. And the second tier is also 1-to-1. But we'll grab it. And I think that covers it for now for the stuff we could use. Let's kind of check this, where the fish pulp basically only goes into nutrient pulp and that's it. That's all we get out of it. The fish oil turns into lubricant or base mineral oil, and that's one thing I didn't notice before. Besides changing the ratio here, it also just gives you the mineral oil instead of the lubricant. So, although you get less mineral oil and more fermentation base, it's not lubricant. So if you wanted the mineral oil to begin with, that's what you can get. So you can choose the output that you get there. And then the fermentation base, it's either acetic acid or ethanol. See, acetic acid could go into plastic and some other things, but it's not particularly useful for us right now. The ethanol gas potentially could to make resin, so it should be right here. And it looks like we're actually doing it in a different way, so it doesn't look like it would be particularly useful right now, but it's something we can do. But anyway, the research is complete. Kind of want to unhook the filters here and let them all get cleaned out. That said, it might take a while, so maybe not. But we're not going to need the coal anymore. I'll leave the warehouse there just in case we decide to do a different processing type. But we have all of this stuff we can do now. Now we're going to do the filtration that gives us more oil and less pulp. Ceramic filters are made from alumina, so we should probably just do that. And it looks like this setup is using about 200 of them. We should be getting some, like, just right here. And no space, because too much junk. So all we need to do is add purified water. And this is made in an assembly machine, so we can just put this back. 1 makes everything that we need. So water treatment, making purified water. Of course, it doesn't line up. There we go. Let's see, we can send the water into the network. And that needs about 300 water, which is 1 pump jack. There we go. Let's put our new ceramic filters in there. And they're all running to get the fuel oil filled up as much as they can. Probably don't need to have 2 of these in here now, but since we already have them, we might as well continue to use them. Okay, we need to figure out some oil. So what are our oil needs? Well, we need lubricant for all of these grinders. And we're going to need lubricant up at the factory as well to make things like motors. We can kind of search it here. What does lubricant go into? All of the high tier bearings, the express loader, and milling drums. So we need quite a bit of it. And then we need mineral oil. And the mineral oil goes into coolant and polishing compound. So as far as which way to process the fish, I kind of feel like we should have both methods available, just depending on if lubricant is low or mineral oil is low. Although it seems like lubricant always attempts to fill this up to 100%, and we have a lot more residual gas than we need, so maybe we should just do it all in mineral oil form. So the question is, how much mineral oil does this make? 175? Let's just go with 300. And we're not sure if doing it from the tier 1 or tier 2 would be better. So let's test both of them. We have filtration unit 2s. We should probably actually calculate this from the fish themselves. And let's calculate based on factory. Like, let's just say we have 10 of these things. And actually, let's do it by fish instead of by factory. Because the fish will be sent in from the aquariums area, since everything we need is up there already. Let's try 10 fish a second. It's probably way too many. Yeah, let's just do 1 and see what we get. Although we want this to be the fish breeding, where we get 1 per second. And then we take our 1 fish, process it through the oil presses, making the raw fish oil. Let's try the way that makes more mineral oil. And then we can process the fish oil. And we have the choice between these 2 things. Well, it certainly creates way more lubricant than fermentation base. If we're just going to throw the fermentation base away, which it seems like we are, then maybe it actually makes sense to run both of them, to basically attempt to fill up either tank. But let's just assume mineral oil. So if we did it in this way where we had 1 fish a second, we would end up with 166 mineral oil, which is quite competitive with this. That's basically what we have already, and that's from 1 fish, which is totally what a drone can do to bring down here. So 166, let's try processing it the other way using ceramic filters, which produces more fish oil and less base mineral oil. And we turn that into base mineral oil. We get 141. So that makes sense. Just depends on, do you want the mineral oil more or the fermentation base more? Or maybe lubricant. That if you wanted lubricant more, then maybe you'd want more fish oil. But I think we want more mineral oil for this. So we'll grab that. And the fish oil, we probably want both in place to attempt to make use of it. But let's just assume it's all going into mineral oil for now. We have our oil refinery with modules. And the fermentation base just basically gets dumped, because the acetic acid would be processes we're not using, and the ethanol would go into ethylene, and we're not really doing that either. But it would be on hand. What kind of output are we actually creating right now? About 150, and it kind of multiplies it a little bit. If we were making 166 mineral oil, it would probably be about 200 lubricant. So what kind of lubricant would we need? Well, it kind of depends. If it was this setup, it would need 320, making engines. 230, working on crystals, 60. Well, one thing I think we need to calculate is how much would we need for doing the coils, because that's going to be a big consumer of it. So we'll do yet another line. So let's say our goal is the tier 2 of coils. We basically want to do it on input here. We have all these different methods. They don't really matter for the purposes of this test. We just want to go down here. So steel ingots. How many steel ingots would be available? And actually steel probably isn't the best thing here because it doesn't go through very many of them. So let's do iron. And just assume regular iron. If regular iron was going, based on our full output, it would be 4 belts, or 120 of an input. Meaning, we would need the 342 coolant. So first thing we would do is cool it down. It doesn't seem to be linking. Maybe I just picked the wrong one. No. I think it's just not carrying the number over right. 343. And it does carry these ones over. So we've cooled the coolant down, and now we need to clean it. And we kind of don't worry about those numbers up there because they're kind of wrong. But ultimately, we would need 68 coolant made freshly. And that would require 13 mineral oil. So as it turns out, not that much. So we probably don't need to go really crazy with this. But we also probably want to be slightly higher output than we have because it is something that can run low sometimes. So how about we do 2 fish per second? We don't have to worry about any of these inputs because we can just put these aquariums, 53 of them, next to this. Because we've got a few more than 53. We've got 368. So we can just put them somewhere to grow the fish. And then basically just a couple of machines. And then when it gets to the fish oil, we can process it in whatever way makes the most sense. Okay. Well, we can start by growing some fish. And to get started, let's just see if we can find a few aquariums somewhere. I'm not seeing them down there. Well, there are some in here, which to me implies that they were being made by hand before. Well, easy enough. Let's make another one here, which requires bronze, glass, and clay bricks. Glass is here, clay bricks is here. I'm not sure about the bronze. Well, I guess it is. Is that bronze? Yeah. So I guess it's here. Okay, making some fish tanks now. So now that we know they will be available, let's expand the setup. Basically, it's going to be identical to everything else here. We just need to hook it into the same pipes. And it's going to be a much bigger setup than that, because this is what grows the Santa rays. This is what pets them. But since petting doesn't actually consume the fish, they just occasionally die, you don't need that many. But here we kind of do. Let's just pick something here where it's probably something like this, and I'm not sure where we would want it to fit. Guess it depends on how big it ends up being. Do we want it to be like that or like that? Oh, the square looks like it would be a better shape. Not to mention it happens to be exactly how many we needed. So, where to put it? Well, that's not going to work. Also, we have no nutrient pulp here because everything is dust. Presumably because it's just not being used. And it looks like some leftover dust from the factory too, because this station isn't actually going to get used anymore. But I guess we would need to make some crystals. So here's a question. How many crystals do we have left? And can any be made? Kind of. But isn't there a nutrient pulp train here, though? Yeah, I guess so. Just keeping this from getting too low, so I suppose it's working properly. Okay. Well, if we can't put it there, where can we put it? Down here? Kind of. In a way, it's kind of competing with space here, but also kind of not, because what else would actually go here? Because if we had made more crystals, we would probably build it somewhere else, but I don't know. Maybe we shouldn't take that space. Because up here would require some landfill, but it's pretty quiet. So if it was to go up here, it would be kind of like this. So if we started landfill from like right there. So is this going to blow everything up? Yep. Collider in the way. I think we can delete that with the editor. Wow. That took a lot of... a lot of little bits there to remove. I'm not sure what's going on there, but it's gone now. But we have some landfill to place. We can grab some more from our generator here, which is conveniently nearby. And that basically fits here so long as we move these pipes around. Probably shouldn't have put those there first without placing concrete. And this is a bit far for the bots to have to go for placing concrete, but they'll eventually get here. Okay, let's try to like line this up, because hopefully all the pipes will be in the same spots. Kind of like that. We have better pipes now. So we don't need any of these connector bits. Do robots make it out here? Not really. Okay, well, nutrient pulp and fish water can just be hooked up to the other setup. Let's get these switched over. Making Factorian fish. And the polluted fish water outputs can be hooked up in the same way. Although there will be a limit to how much this can run based on the output tank here. So, knowing that, probably want to have a setup here to pressurize it and make sure there's somewhere for it to be stored. Let's use module inserter to get all of these things covered. There we go. So fish that are grown will go that way, while the input fish go that way. That will produce an output of fish. We need some storage warehouses in here. But let's say there has to be at least 100 fish. So let's say everything has to be less than 200 to turn on, just so we have some fish in here to load everything up. But this one needs to have at least 100 because we don't want it going down to 0. And this will create some Factorio fish, which need a depot somewhere. So let's just do that and set this to more like 1,000. Actually, we can make this one a storage chest, just asking for the Factorio fish to go in there. Because before, I think we're just chopping them up into fish food, if they so happen to find their way in our inventory. Yeah. Well, we'll no longer do that, because now we have a better place to put them. So we should be able to test this. We might need to have a dump in here in case it gets overloaded. But we need some Factorio fish. Luckily, they're easy enough to find, and there's a lot of them here. Of course, our logistics are just putting them in there, but how about 100? Oops, I ate it. Well, they're helping us. And we did put more than 100 in there, so let's see. No, this has to be more than 100. There we go. And those fish can swim fast. It looks like there's some missing inserters here. Oh yeah, this needs to be anything. There we go, so it's not on when it's 0. So what does this create? 200 polluted fish water. And 2 fish. Well, I'm kind of worried that this polluted fish water won't have anywhere to go. So let's put a clarifier right here. Oops, except it's exactly in the wrong spot. Of course, it's kind of in the wrong spot everywhere. So that's not the best way of doing it. So how about right here? Because I would rather keep the polluted fish water if possible, because it makes crystals. Because of the position of this thing being on the far end, it's using the same logic. If we had placed it over here, it would be easier to put the pipe facing this direction. And I suppose that's another option, is just to go up and over. I'll leave these tanks in here for now, just as buffers. But it would get pressurized. Really? The piece of land right there is what causes the problem? I guess we'll just keep going along the edge here. Also, a suspicious lack of concrete. There we go. By hooking it up to here, it'll get the same breeding logic as the Santa rays. I suppose we can keep the clarifier there anyway, just in case it ends up being needed. And it looks like this is making Factorio fish. It's just going to take some amount of time. But it seems like it's working, so I'll leave it plugged in. Next step of this process is processing that fish. But that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.